Hello, welcome. So glad you're here. I'm Allison Kinnear. Today we are talking about rethinking imposter syndrome. There's a really amazing article in Harvard Business Review. It just came out this week, and it's entitled Stop Telling Women They Have Imposter Syndrome. And I wanted to share my thoughts with you. So, number one, it's a fantastic article, and it is absolutely worth reading. It really calls out companies and cultures to stop blaming individuals for the impact and results of systemic racism and oppression and sexism in the workplace, because that exists. If you don't think that exists, just think about our new vice president and how nobody knew what to call her husband. And by the way, there is a laundry room besides me, so if you hear extra noise, that's what that is. Right on. So this is, and that not knowing what to call the spouse of our vice president is just one indication of many, many other instances. If you talk to women in the professional world or women who have been in a predominantly male work environment or people of color in a predominantly white work environment, you will know how many times they speak something out, the group ignores it, and then somebody in a more dominant identity, who possesses more dominant identity traits, says the exact same thing, and everyone hears it that time. So a woman says one thing, nobody responds. A man says the exact same thing, and everyone's like, wow, that's a great idea. This is the phenomena that happens all the time, let alone the microaggressions, let alone the double standards, let alone the professionalism standards that gets weaponized in our workplace environments on a daily basis. And so what I love is that the Harvard Business Review, or this article, is really calling that out and saying this is an underlying cause to imposter syndrome. So instead of telling everyone that they are suffering from imposter syndrome, let's instead fix these systems and do better. Absolutely. 100% agree. And what I also agree on is, when you call it imposter syndrome, it makes it almost sound like a disease, like something out of the DSM that we're being diagnosed with. And that's not the case. It is an imperfect label. Imposter syndrome is an imperfect label that is describing the persistent belief or thought pattern involved when you think you are failing, you think you will be fired any moment, even though you are achieving success and forward movement. So it's a paradox. It's a thing where you think, oh, I've got everyone fooled. I don't feel like I'm deserving of this, even though everyone keeps putting praise on me and I keep advancing forward. So that way of thinking, there doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It doesn't mean it's some kind of disease that needs to be cured. It's just an imperfect label for that persistent thought pattern. And I think the place where the article misses something is that anyone worth their salt in talking about imposter syndrome, there's 7 great reasons to feel like an imposter. And 3 of them are absolutely, 3 of the 7 are absolutely tied to societal, social constructs, systems of oppression. 3 of them are absolutely tied to that. The other 4, however, are based a little bit more individually. Childhood messages, working alone, having a job that's creative, and being a student and learner. So any job in which you are needing to innovate, any job in which you are needing to learn things constantly, any position in which you are working alone, and hello, even if we are working with our family members right outside the door, we are still working alone with this pandemic. And so when we are working in more isolation, and if we've grown up with families who really said it's not okay to make a mistake, those are 4 other reasons that may contribute to that persistent way of thinking. Because the self-doubt, the lack of confidence, the ruminating, all of that breeds in those conditions. And so I think it's a little incomplete to only frame imposter syndrome as something that is workplace specific. However, that does not diminish the importance. And if anything, our society is showing us nowadays is we are a day late and a dollar short with resolving our systems of oppression in the workplace and in our society. So that does not need to be diminished or taken away from. The thing that I think about when it comes to imposter syndrome and when it comes to the article, the thing that I find to be lacking is what I find is the article is a great piece of advocacy. It's shining a light on an important part of our society. So many companies love imposter syndrome training because they're trying to help people, be supportive of their workplace culture. And yet, so many workplace cultures are really hesitant to take the good hard look at the mirror and see themselves and see where they might be building a workplace culture, which is another good reason why people feel like an imposter is because the workplace culture feeds it. That's a much harder thing. It's much easier to hire in a speaker such as myself to come in and talk about it to help individual employees be better instead of calling themselves out and wondering what they can do to be better, right? What I think about as a coach, because I just gave a talk on imposter syndrome yesterday, and I didn't mention this article, but I kind of gave this point of view that I'm giving you right now yesterday. And my perspective is, yes, we need to continue challenging these systems that are in place so that we can improve and get better. And what I think about as being important is that I don't want anyone to be experiencing the microaggressions, to be experiencing being ignored on a routine basis and think there's something wrong with me. Maybe I'm not saying things right. Maybe I'm not that great at what I do. I don't want anyone to fall into those traps because those traps lead to some pretty significant downward spirals. I want for people to be aware that these systems exist and to have tools so that they themselves can rely upon trusted sources, trusted being the key word, and themselves to be resilient, to be strong, to stay in the game so we can change the game. That's what I want. And so that's the part too, is that I think it's still important to talk about imposter syndrome, not because I want people to feel like they've got something wrong with them, but so that we can build tools so that if you're having a day where you've had some microaggressions and you're hearing your mom's voice in your head telling you you're not good enough, and you are working alone from home and you're trying to do something new and innovative, that you are not at the mercy of all of those varying factors, but you know how to get yourself out of it so you can show up in an amazing way. So those are my sense. I want to see the comments. Griffin, yes, thank you. Of the 7, there are 4 that ring true. Really agree on your analysis. Yes, absolutely. That's not just one thing that contributes to this. It's a lot of things. There's also profession culture. So even beyond the bounds of the office, the profession may present some of the systemic pieces. And while, I'm going to have to do this. Read this again. Yes, there are the profession may have some systems in it for sure. That's beyond the societal. And it's being improved. The individual can benefit from more of this work while advocating for systemic growth. Yes. So absolutely. And tools to stay in the game, to change the game. That's what we need, right? Because if everyone leaves the game, if you go, oh, this work isn't for me. Oh, I have to leave my profession. Oh, I have to leave my career, because you're so in your head, not because it's all in your head, but you are in your head and you don't know how to get out of your head about it. Because maybe there's a fit that is not good culturally. Maybe there's systems that the profession in and of itself or as a workplace is driving forward that's making it so that it's not the greatest fit. So do you stay in it to change the fit, or do you leave and find a better fit? These are questions that I think are important to grapple with without your worthiness being on the line. And that's the place where I stand. People's worthiness does not need to be on the line. We need to make discerning decisions about what we do and how we spend our professional time and where we spend our professional time. But I don't want to undermine your worthiness, especially if you're somebody who's crushing it. Right? Woo! So I'm all fired up. Read the article. It is so good. It is so important. And if you are a leader, let me just bring a little tough love. If you are a leader in a company, you are a manager, you are someone at a senior level, it is, and especially if you're somebody who is in a dominant, who has some dominant identities. You're white, even if you're a white woman, you're a man, especially if you're a white man, you're hetero, you're cisgendered, all of these things. It is important, it is critical for you to take a good hard look at yourself and some of the unintentional ways you may be reinforcing things in reinforcing systems of oppression. That you may be unintentionally or hopefully not intentionally supporting systems that engaging in microaggressions, doing things that may be undermining people's confidence, ignoring people that maybe are talking and you just don't hear them, criticizing them because they don't speak up. Because for a lot of women, if you speak up, the workplace wants you to speak up, and then when you do, sometimes you get penalized for it. So if you're a leader, especially if you're a white male leader, and you have penalized people for speaking up, but you're not doing that to your white male counterparts, those are opportunities to take a good hard look in the mirror, because that's exactly what the article is talking about. And those are ways that you may be unintentionally perpetuating and creating more opportunities for imposter syndrome to grow in your company and really to make it a very unequitable place to be. That's the cold hard look that we all have to do. I'm doing, you do, I do as a leader, I do as a coach, and as an instructor, and that we are all being called to do. All right. I will leave you with that. Read the article. Tell me what you think. And I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye.